Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Edina. I'm Sam Thompson and I'm proud to be your 66th president. We're coming to you live from the Edina Country Club and we're also on Zoom. Today we have 31 people pre-registered on live and 33 on Zoom. As we battle through the pandemic, it seems every day is Groundhog Day. Each day rolls into the next. You get up, you do the same old thing. Many people say that 2020 will go down in history as one of the worst years ever. And here's one comment from Kermit the Frog. So I'm sorry we're going to get that extra hour on Sunday. Yet if you look back, there have been some positive things that have happened in 2020. I don't want to minimize this difficult year, but many lives, because many lives have been lost and many people have been struggling. But I would like to share with you a glass half full perspective. And here are a few good things that came out of 2020. We've learned that homeschooling is hard. And we're finally recognizing the teachers for the heroes that they are. Another good thing that's come out of 2020 is many have embraced technology. Grandparents are learning how to Zoom and FaceTime, forcing many of us to learn a new set of technical skills. And we are closing that digital divide where poor kids are getting better internet access. And also, with technology, telemedicine is now real. It provides value to many not seeing doctors or mental health experts in person. In 2020, we have faced the issue of racism. It's been raw and it's been painful, yet it's a long overdue discussion. Another good thing that has come out of 2020 is Crayola launched a box of crayons with diverse skin colors so children can accurately color themselves into the world. In 2020, the massive focus on finding a COVID vaccine is sparking new energy for science and research to combat other diseases. During the pandemic, Americans have rushed to adopt and foster pets in need. And in 2020, drive-in movie theaters have made a comeback. And drive-in concerts are now a thing. In 2020, the pandemic was a major disruptor for businesses. It led to unprecedented levels of innovation, such as distilleries producing hand sanitizers. And another good thing that came out of this past year is individuals from around the world have stepped up and brushed up on their sewing skills, making masks for people that need them the most. In 2020, even though you might be adding pounds, we've rediscovered the love of old hobbies, like baking and gardening. And in 2020, we're seeing improved hand washing, which is definitely going to condition us to improve long-term hygiene. And it'll limit the spread of colds and flu. So I really am looking forward to the day that we can be in the back of that room, shaking hands and hugging. But until then, we just have to realize that we'll have to look hard enough to find lemonade made from lemons. Okay, member update. Bridget Hallstrom has some exciting news. She has a new job with Bergen KDV in Bloomington. And that's a CPA consulting firm. And her title is Relationship Manager. And she'll be working with existing clients, ensuring that they're providing a value and they're providing the wow experience. And she plans to grow their 28 different solutions. And in this photo, she's with her husband Mark and their 1-year-old dog Augie. And other great news is she's pregnant. And can you hear me? Other great news is that Bridget is pregnant. And she's due on December 22nd, and they know it's going to be a boy. And Bridget told me she couldn't be more excited to welcome our little one and become parents. And also, with Halloween around the corner, Bonnie Sue Rolstad is seen here with her granddaughter, Jocelyn, who's 7 years old, and they're in a pumpkin bubble. And this is a tradition they do every Halloween, that they paint these pumpkins. They've been doing it for 15 years, and they deliver them to family, friends, office, and neighbors. And Rotary in the news. I want to thank Fred, Ryan, Sandra, and Jennifer. They cleared out 20 raised garden beds at every meal. That's formerly the Sheridan story. And in 2019, 2020, last year, our club led a district grant to pay for the construction of the beds and the initial planting. And this has actually created thousands of bags of produce from the gardens that distributed to families in need through the Grow and Give garden. We have a couple birthdays this next week that are listed there. Happy birthday to the two of you. And Rotary Anniversaries. We have 3 anniversaries that are coming up this next week. So congratulations to the 3 of you. And assisting Off Podium, we have our greeter, Paul Peterson, which actually I thought it was Mike Opitz back there. Is Paul back there? Okay. And Zoom is Bonnie Sue Rolstad. Front desk, Mike Opitz. Michael's working the desk, helping Becky. Photographer, Kaylin Eisness. And AV support is Ryan Wilson. And a reminder, once you're done eating, please wear your mask for the safety of your other members. And now I'd like to have Nick Van Beek come up to do the invocation pledge and 4-way test.
Would you pray with me? Father in heaven, in a world with sickness and death, give us health and life. In a world with so much bad news, give us good news. In a world of isolation and loneliness, give us friendship and community. In a world of racial tension, give us justice and reconciliation. In a world of selfishness, give us service. In a world of division, give us unity. In a world of chaos, give us peace and rest. In a world that needs saving, give us a Savior. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the 4-way test of the things that we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Edina Rotary. My name is Zach Wallace. For those of you that don't know me, I'm representing the Edina Rotaract. I want to introduce you guys to our December service event, lighting up the holiday season. The premise is pretty simple. Our idea here is either you or anybody you know that doesn't want to hang your lights this Christmas. We would love to hang your lights, believe it or not. We'll also take them down in March after the holiday season is over. All we're asking for is a donation, and then we will donate the proceeds to the shelter box, which I believe is something that you guys are very passionate about. So again, either you or anybody you know that doesn't want to hang your lights, I'm sure nobody does, we will gladly do it for you. So if you have any questions, talk to me or Mark in the back of the room there, and we will help you out. Thank you again.
Hello. Today we have one guest, Michael McGibbon, who is with Kaylin. Would you like to stand, please, and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi. So this is my guest, Michael McGibbon. He works for ESP Realtor, or Realty, or no, EXP. Sorry. Good. And he is just here to check out our club.
Great. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
That picture was definitely a few years ago. That's my LinkedIn picture. I probably have to change it, but like everybody else, you have to go and get an updated photo, but that's the best one I have now. So good afternoon, Edina Rotary. It's a pleasure to be here. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sylvester Thomas. And myself and Jennifer Benarat, we're going to co-chair a new committee called Race and Equity. The mission of the committee is to advance racial equity within the Edina Rotary and to provide encouragement and financial support to those local organizations that are in need when possible. The committee has established several goals, which includes hosting a prospective member day targeted to people of color in the third quarter of 2020-2021 Rotary year. Secondly, to assist the program committee in finding speakers to talk about racial equity on a regular basis. Third is to assist the Community Service and Local Funding Committee in finding worthy nonprofits serving people of color and encouraging them to apply for grants from the Edina Rotary Foundation. Fourth, increase the number of Black members in the club by a minimum of +1 by June 30th, 2021. Increase the number of members of color in the club by a minimum of +1 by June 30th, 2021. And add an additional person of color to the club's board of directors by July 1st, 2021. The committee currently meets every other week. The next meeting will be held via, obviously, WebEx at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, November 4th. To participate, contact Jennifer Benarat to receive the login information. We currently have 10 members, which is really exciting, that are part of the committee. If you feel called, it's like a calling, right? If you feel called to join the committee, you are more than welcome. And again, please reach out to me or Jennifer. And lastly, I'd just like to thank Josh Sprague, for really encouraging me to be part of such an important committee, and to the Edina Rotary Board for giving this issue such a voice. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Lindsay Smaka, and for those of you who don't know me, I teach science at the high school, and I'm part of the Rotary Club. I am coordinating the new Edina Rotary Global Scholars Program launched this year. We have 7 students who are currently taking their capstone course this fall, and these 7 students have been working hard researching a global issue of their choice, in a country of their choice, and also at a local level here. So students have started some internships, some volunteer experiences, and we're still trying to place a couple of students. So if you saw in the Barker my plea for help, please check that out if you are interested in helping out these students. Also this spring I'll have a whole new cohort of students, and we will be looking for opportunities for them as well. So we have 4 students here who are Zooming with us, hopefully. I'm going to introduce them, and they're going to give you a little 1-minute spiel on what their research is all about. So we will start with Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Ebert, and I'm a junior at Edina High School. Echoes really bad. Currently, my global research project, I'm focusing on Germany, and I'm also focusing on the Sustainable Communities and Cities SDG. Ms. Smaka has a lot of connections with people in Germany because she studied abroad there and has lots of friends. So I thought it would be really cool to get like an internship or a volunteer opportunity with a company or organization over there, and we're working on that. And then for my local project, I've been doing some research, and I'm organizing like, I don't know, like a little volunteer. I'm volunteering and researching at the same time how Indigenous people are the future of sustainability. And actually right after this meeting, I have a little session with the Sioux Kitchen. It's like an Indigenous food lab. So that'll be fun.
It's from Global Market. So she'll be there packaging meals for people in need, put together by the sous chef. I don't know if you've ever heard of him before. Thanks, Lauren. Next, we'll do Oliver.
Hi, everyone. My name is Oliver Engstrom. I'm in 11th grade, junior at Edina High School, and I'm following the STEM pathways for the Ms. Maka's new Global Scholar Program. And I've decided to research the Sustainable Development Goal of clean water and sanitation because we live in Minnesota and we have so much fresh water. But so my primary focus has been to research the polluting of the Minnesota rivers over the many years that we've colonized this country. And I paired it with Vietnam, which I went over to Vietnam last summer, and I saw firsthand the pollution of the Mekong River, which is the largest river in Vietnam. And Miss Maka gave me the connection to a student in Vietnam who's a senior, and she started a project of her own over there, cleaning up Ho Chi Minh City, very close to the Mekong, of non-recyclable and basically pollution. And so, yeah, I've been connecting with her just recently and researching the same effects of pollution in Vietnam, tying it back to Minnesota, and hopefully in the end making a theoretical partnership with Minnesota and Vietnam. So yeah.
Thank you, Oliver. Next, we'll do Olivia.
Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm a junior at the Edina High School. I'm currently doing the STEM pathway. And so my research project is researching sustainable energy and like comparing, contrasting Minnesota and South Korea and how far they've like improved their sustainable use. And I want to like give alternate ways that we can limit to like substitute for limited resources. And I just kind of want to see like how they're like show how they're going to get there to like 100% sustainable by 2030. And then so also I think I'm currently for the local project. I've signed up to do a volunteer work at the Global Market, but also I would love to look into like doing like look into like a radio station or like something that like issues like bigger like shows like bigger world issues or like something that like corresponds with sustainable energy.
Thanks, Olivia. And last we have Francesca.
Hi, I'm Francesca Leah. I'm currently a junior at Edina, and I'm following the STEM pathway. My project centers around how we can use biotechnology in order to create a sustainable food source to meet our Zero Hunger SDG. Specifically, I would like to research the positive impact GMOs can have on reaching this goal by creating more nutritious and plentiful food sources in countries that are suffering from this extreme hunger. The country I chose to focus on is the Philippines, and I chose it because of their struggles with malnutrition, specifically vitamin A deficiency, which can cause a myriad of health concerns. I also chose the Philippines because of their previous work in this field as they began to develop GMO known as golden rice a couple years ago. And while this is kind of controversial due to its like inorganic nature, it has the potential of solving many world hunger solutions or it has the potential of solving many world hunger problems, and I would like to learn more about it as well as similar solutions. For my local aspect of the project, I'll be working with Carly Box, a research laboratory technician who works in global edible solutions at Cargill. So I feel like through a hybrid of this local experience as well as my research regarding the global aspect, I hope to learn more about potential solutions in the biotech field to address this issue in our world.
Thank you, Lindsay. That is great. Okay, I'd like to introduce Paul Mooty, who will be introducing our speaker today. Paul is born and raised a Minnesotan. He received his BSB in business from the Carlson School of Management at the University of Minnesota and his JD from the University of Minnesota Law. One of your greatest joys was becoming a member of the Rotary Club of Edina and having the honor to serve as president in 2008-2009. He is currently a member of the Fairview Community Advisor Committee and a board member of Gianni Homes, and previously served on the Edina Community Foundation Board. Paul and his wife Jean live in Edina and have 3 children and 3 grandchildren. Please welcome Paul.
Thanks for that long introduction. Well, it's a real pleasure for me to be able to introduce Mark Ritchie. I met Mark back in 2011 when we were in the process of buying and reopening the Faribault Woolen Mill Company. Mark was the Secretary of State at the time, and he showed such real and sincere interest in what we were doing and was a remarkable supporter. He was at our grand opening ceremony with the governor, and I even remember him coming down one evening to Faribault when the NBC Sunday Evening News was there to film a story about us. He was there to support and encourage us, and I remember thinking how kind it was for him to take all that time just to be there with us. It meant a lot. Since then, I've occasionally received emails from him when he sees something about our business and just wants to give us a shout out. The world needs more Mark Ritchies, and our government could use them even more. I'm not sure of all your politics, Mark, but if we can get you to run, you've got my vote. Mark Ritchie is president of Global Minnesota, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization devoted to advancing international understanding and engagement. A graduate of the Humphrey School of Public Affairs at the University of Minnesota and Iowa State University, he served as Minnesota's Secretary of State from 2007 to 2015. Since leaving elected public service, Mark has led the public-private partnership working to bring the 2027 World Expo to Minnesota, and he has served on the board of directors for LifeSource, Communicating for America, U.S. Vote Foundation, and Expo USA. Mark is also a national advisory board member of the Federal Election Assistance Commission and Mothers Against Drunk Driving Minnesota. Mark is appointed civilian aide to the Secretary of Army representing Minnesota. Please welcome Mark Ritchie.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all of you who came down and were there for that ribbon cutting when the Faribault Woolen Mills was being kind of honored. I know that the club came down. I think I might have met some of Paul's family from all over, but that was a very special day, so thank you. I'm excited to be here. I didn't know I would have the bonus of seeing those 4 young people talk about their amazing global, their focus on a country and on a project and that kind of thing. I'd like to connect with that more, but we are on a time frame here. You're serious people that leave at 1:30. And I'm at the Rotary Club at the university, and we're a little bit looser about time. But we have other things to do. I want to talk about the ways that Minnesota has, in its DNA, focused on connecting to the world. Now, it's a little bit unusual. You know, we've all pretty much come here from someplace else. You know, people came across Bering Strait and came down, and people came from the East Coast a long time ago. They discovered pipestone. Some of you know that story, but you know, about 10,000 years ago, people all over the continent said, wait a minute, there's this place. They didn't call it Minnesota. But it has this special stone, and that special stone makes a very special pipe, and that pipe allows us to do a very special ceremony that allows us to live more peacefully with our neighbors and friends. And you know, where that pipe is, that stone is, there shouldn't be any weapons there, and it shouldn't be owned and controlled by anybody, and it should be a sacred place. And there's evidence of that pipestone trade happening throughout the continent and ending up being passed, even into Central and South America. But we had people coming back and forth and through this area for a very long time. But I think we know more about the story of those who came here as voyagers, trappers, missionaries, people who eventually came and settled here, particularly thinking about rich farmland, incredibly big trees, incredibly valuable minerals, fish in the rivers, in the lakes. But people came here and have been coming here and continue to come here for a long time. And they came here often with some purposes that have been woven into who we are as people today. One of them was so many people that left sort of poverty and famine where they were, Germany, Norway, Ireland, different places. And so people came here out of what you could call necessity. And sometimes that necessity was being created by a war or a civil war. Sometimes that necessity was by the rules, how land was handed down. This was particularly the case in the Scandinavian countries. But people came here to make a better life for themselves and for their children and future generations. Some people came here fleeing oppression. They were a peasant and there was a crushing of peasantry, or they were of different religion and the king or whomever didn't like that religion, but they fled and they came and they brought a desire for freedom and the ability to practice their beliefs, their religious beliefs and others. We have, others who came here because it was part of sort of their vision of the world, and they were explorers of a certain kind. Some of you may know that we have one grave of a Revolutionary War hero, a hero of the Battle of Ticonderoga, buried down by Winona. But we were a place where people came. And one of the effects of that was that we had the opportunity to create a new kind of economy and a new kind of way of being with each other. But of course, we're a long ways from the coast and a long ways from other places. We kind of had to take care of ourselves in a certain way. But we also always kept in touch with and thinking about people in other parts of the world. Sometimes because it was our cultural heritage. I happen to be German. My grandfather's name actually was Richter, but his boss didn't want any Germans, after the First World War, so he picked a Scottish name, I don't know, out of a hat or something. But we all have different ties and different connections, and this has been the case for a long time. But Minnesotans also had a kind of a sense of taking care of each other with some consciousness, or what I call organized kindness. And I'm not the first person to call it organized kindness, but it is a kind of way that we are as a people, and it is part of how we connect to other parts of the world. Rochester had a terrible tornado, lots of people killed, many people injured. The nuns kind of opened up all their different buildings, and that's where they put people who were injured, and that's where the older Mayo doctor, Dr. Mayo, began doing surgeries and all of this. And pretty much after they got that taken care of, the nuns said, listen here, we can't just go doing these surgeries and making all this kind of craziness. These things happen. Let's build a hospital. We, the nuns, will build the hospital. We'll be the nurses. You, and when your boys are older and doctors, you can be the doctors. And actually, Dr. Mayo said, no, that's not what we do. We're just, family doctors. And the Mother Superior said, no, that's not what you do. And I believe she won. I think that Ken Burns actually tells that story honestly and directly. But in any case, they got organized and built something that their community needed. And it has become, internationally famous, but it was because they responded to an issue or situation. The same thing happened actually in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They were doing surgeries in people's houses, and some of the doctors went down to the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago. They came back and they said, hey, look, we got to quit doing this surgery in the house, and we got to build a hospital. And so they got together and they actually called it, let's build an institution of organized kindness. And 100 people kicked in, I think $5 each or something like that, and they built the Sioux Valley Hospital, which today we call Sanford Health, kind of a big institution built out of that kind of thinking. Let's get it together, let's make this happen. But Minnesotans have also been kind of global-minded in the sense of thinking about markets and connectivity. You know, we have created some very extraordinary companies who have always thought of themselves as being nested in the world. And, you know, some of them become very big. We're very famous for and very proud of having so many Fortune 500 companies. But some of them really had to struggle to arrive and to get here. I have had the opportunity the last few months to be organizing and now having put a big exhibit up over at the Mall of America, which I'd love you to see sometime. It's a big place over there. It's up on the 3rd floor. It's up on the north wing across from the food court by the JW. But it's a exhibit about the time 100 years ago when Minnesotans and Minnesota food companies fed the children of Europe. Now, most of us don't even know this story, but when the Germans marched into Belgium, a neutral country, and northern France, they began clearing the food out and moving it to Germany, and the British blockaded because they thought they could starve the Germans out, and who got starved were the Belgian people. And the Belgian people and the people in northern France freaked out. They were starving. There was a 4-week supply of food. It was a very industrialized country that imported its food. And about 100,000 Americans fled, and they went through London, and a young American engineer, a mining engineer, helped them get back to the United States, and he was so good at that, he got rounded up by the U.S. ambassador and the Belgian ambassador, and he was asked if he would take on a pretty big task, which was raising millions of dollars, finding a lot of food, convincing the British to let him through the blockade, that was the hardest, and the Germans to not steal the food, take it back to Germany. And could he get it there in 3 or 4 weeks, because people were dying? And he said yes. And his name was Herbert Hoover, and he knew that he had to get that food from out here. He knew that the Washburn Crosby Company had built the world's biggest mill, and that wheat and wheat flour was what was needed. And he began a process of privately, as citizens, raising the money. He partnered with Washburn Crosby, and so most of you know the name of James Ford Bell. He's got a museum named after him, and there's a library over at the U, but people don't know that James Ford Bell and Herbert Hoover together fed not only the children of Europe, but they saved 10 million lives when the war was still, when the U.S. was not yet in the war. And then he was asked by President Wilson to then take over providing the food for all of Europe at the end and for all the rest of the war. And so from 1914 to 1923, probably saving somewhere between 100 and 150 million lives. And most of that was wheat and wheat flour and coming out of our region. So how did we have it invest? How was it possible for this area to basically feed our own country and all of Europe? Well, it was because our companies, like Washburn Crosby, which we now today call General Mills, Pillsbury, which some of you know was absorbed into General Mills, but Pillsbury was another one. They had invested and they had created the capacity and they had made technological advancements. And our farmers knew how to, boost production. This was in the middle of a pandemic. This was in the middle of droughts that created fires that killed hundreds. I mean, we had fires like California here. This was when 100,000 of our young farmers were in France fighting. So we had a capacity, but Hoover knew this because he was a Midwesterner. He also knew that James Ford Bell was a Midwesterner and that they could get this done. And they also both were Quakers. They were values-driven people who saw that service and responding to a human need was what was expected of them by God. And they were very, very serious about this. Some school kids in Liège, Belgium, wrote letters of appreciation or gratitude to the children of America, thanking them for saving their lives. Beautiful letters, beautifully painted. Many thousands of flour sacks were stitched with similar messages. But those special letters got lost for 100 years. And a woman in the United States who happens to be in charge of international things at University of Wisconsin-Madison found these in the trunk of a family heirloom, so to speak, took them to the Belgian government, and they said, oh my God, read these letters. These are letters of gratitude for their lives being saved to the children of America and to the people of America. These should be available. And so they took them, they blew them up big, they translated them, they made them into a museum type exhibit, and I asked them if I could borrow it for a year, because the A mill, which produced a huge percent of this, is what we now call the Mill City Museum, downtown. And I thought, oh, what a perfect place to remind ourselves that 100 years ago we fed Europe, and that in fact, which we think famine, we think sort of Africa, famine was Europe. And we think famine, oh, people don't produce enough food. No, famine was war and conflict. And that story is an important story to consider today. Anyhow, Mill City Museum's closed, of course, COVID. Folks at the Mall of America, bless their hearts, said, oh yes, come use our space, our wall. They helped figure out the design to explain it, and it's on their wall. I bring this up because that helped a lot of people make some connection with family and with understanding. And the embassy in Belgium put it on their Facebook page, and somebody this morning sent me a picture of a bag that his grandmother had stitched with appreciation, and there's a lot to that. But it's a reminder that this has been something we've been anxious to do, we've been good at doing. We take organized kindness as a way that we help ourselves, like in Rochester or in our communities, but we also think about it on a global scale. And I had the opportunity to, serve as your Secretary of State. And in the course of doing that, I got to spend a lot of time all over the state. I got to see all the different ways that people have created companies or created business opportunities, because that's what the Secretary of State, although in the newspapers, yes, we run the election, but mostly Secretaries of State take business filings. Some of you have probably done 1 or 1,000. Some of you probably have done 1,000. But in any case, in that process, I realized all the different things that I could kind of brag on my state about, and I noticed that most of my neighbors weren't such good braggers. In fact, they're kind of shy about this. And so this is, well, we have to do something about that. And so I got into the habit I appreciate, of just bragging on Minnesota. And when I decided that I had done what I promised at home, my wife, that I would only run twice, and if I was successful, great, but that would be it. She asked me when I was telling her that I had promised, and yes, I was gonna fulfill that promise, a good thing to do at home. She said, well, what are you gonna do about your habit? And I said, well, which one, And she said, bragging about Minnesota. And I realized that she was asking me a serious question. And that serious question led to a number of things, but one of them was being open to, when I was asked if I would help lead the charge to bring a World's Fair here. And I thought, there's an opportunity to go brag about Minnesota. They got 170 countries out there, 169 plus the US, so we got 169 countries to convince about how great Minnesota is and why they ought to come here and all that. And so, but in the course of doing that, I also began to see the other ways that Minnesota had built itself connectivity to the world and had thought about it. And I knew a little bit about the organization what we today call Global Minnesota. We used to call it, and I would bet most of you still do, Minnesota International Center. Minnesota International Center was born about 70 years ago, but it was born out of a kind of a true Minnesotan impulse. And it was a group of women in the Metropolitan Church Council, and they had read an article in the Church Women magazine from January. So this was a discussion that had led to a speech that had been written down. So I had that speech to read that said, there was an article in our Church Women's magazine, and it talked about all of these students who were coming to the United States. So this was 1951, 50-51. It was after the Second World War, it was the middle of the Cold War, coming here to go to our colleges and universities. We've always had some of that. We've had students coming from China for over 100 years, but there was a lot. This was a government program in some ways. And some of those young people coming here weren't having such good experiences. And it was noted that, it's the Christian thing to do to welcome people. It's a Christian thing to do to support people and be friendly and all of that. And these young people coming here, probably when they go home, they'll be leaders of some kind. So what they think about Minnesota and America is important. And so they took one particular bad story, a very bad racial incident that affected somebody from South Africa who came to, I think, Cincinnati or maybe Dayton, Ohio. But in any case, they said, we don't want that here. They formed an organization that was specifically designed to welcome international students and to support them over the course of the time they were here. And they made that organization a very powerful, very vibrant organization. It has grown over 70 years. It has expanded. It does a lot of different things. But the main theory underneath it is always the same, that it's there to connect Minnesotans to the world and the world to Minnesota. Now, bless their hearts, in the beginning, it was kind of about sort of, these young people are coming here, we're going to help them out. And in the 1968 annual report, so that was 51, 52, it's in that area. In the 1968 annual report, it says, when we started, we were kind of a helper organization, but as travel has gotten less expensive and more people have traveled, our members have come to appreciate that there's many things we could learn from other people from other countries. And we have been a little naive about that and a little blind about that, in that we need to rethink what we're doing to make it more of a two-way street. And the mission was, in the very beginning, it was the slogan, they've arrived as strangers, may they leave as friends. A basic, fundamental human value. Now the mission, advancing international understanding and engagement. So it had a bigger kind of picture about advancing understanding, and there's a deep word for understanding. Rotary is big time and deeply committed to advancing international understanding. And if anyone who read the Taipei articles in the magazine that might have come to you this week, or maybe not, but in any case, it's what we do. Global scholars, it's what we do. But engagement, that's one thing that Rotary really does, whether it's polio or you name it, but it also is very Minnesotan. And in that way, I've had the privilege now of the last couple of years being at the heart of an organization who's devoted to that basic understanding that Minnesotans want to be connected to the world because we know it's the right thing. They want the world connected to us because they know it's good for our economy, it's good for our social life, it's good for our culture, but also that our ability to handle and to make the world what we'd like it to be requires that we never forget that we've come here from someplace else, but we never forget that we're here. And so when I'm out there banging on a foreign minister saying, you got to come to Minnesota and do this, I'm able to say that my neighbors are welcoming neighbors. my community wants to not only show you what we do, and I told them, we don't brag much, but we like to show you the back 40 and the garden. We like to show, so you got to come to do that. But also, we want to learn from others, and we want to understand how we make a future together. And so I had the good fortune to be able to be in a job where I can contribute to that any day. I have the good fortune of being in a Rotary chapter over there on the university where there's lots of international stuff, kind of like here, but I mean, it's there. But I also have this, this great good fortune of being out in the world and saying, I'm from Minnesota. And when you say that in most places, and they are not, what? If they have heard of Minnesota, it's because something welcoming, some kind of kindness had touched them. And that's a kind of a unique and amazing opportunity that I have that I get to experience and get to be blessed by every day. Thank you for inviting me to talk a little bit about Minnesota and the world, and we have a few minutes for questions, but I know you guys are strict.
Okay, so about 50 years ago, the Rotary International held a convention in Minneapolis. It was 1974. And my mom worked on the PR for that convention with Padilla Spear, another great Minnesota company. But it's been 50 years. So are you interested at all in advocating for another international convention to come back to Minneapolis for Rotary?
I'm supposed to repeat the questions. The question was, 50 years ago, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minneapolis hosted the international convention. Am I interested, are we interested in it coming back? Yes, sir. I don't know how to agitate exactly on the timing, but I'd like to talk to you about it because, of course, we've built the infrastructure to do this. We plan on having the World's Fair here in the summer of 2027. It's our nation's 250th birthday in 2026, and there'll probably be a 2-year birthday, and maybe we can do the closing of that birthday out here in the heartland. And so we would have arguments to make or advertising to make. And I didn't know that Padilla and Spear was involved, but they would be a great partner for now. So yes, thank you. Is your mom still alive? Oh, I thought that.
One more question.
Okay, one more. Okay.
Mr. Ritchie, thank you for doing something really great for all the people in Minnesota. I understand that your organization invited ambassadors from different countries to come to Minnesota and talk about what's going on in their countries. And I met South Korean ambassadors several times. I came from South Korea. I highly recommend that you invite North Korean ambassador to United Nations based in New York to come to Minnesota and talk about their plan in the future. I think it'll mean a lot for a lot of people in here.
Great suggestion. Thank you. And because everything is Zoom now, we can do this. I mean, it just makes it easier now. Yeah. Thank you.
Hang on one second. Thanks for bragging up Minnesota. We love that. I'm going to brag up Rotary a little bit. From literacy and peace to water and health, Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million problem solvers who unite to take action and create lasting change to better our world. In honor of your presentation today, we will make a donation to the Sheridan Story, an organization focused on providing weekend and other food gap programs to over 10,000 children in the Twin Cities metropolitan area.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Looking ahead, there's our schedule. Looking into November, a couple things I want to point out. For Vocational Happy Hour on November 4th, Nick Van Beek will be the speaker. And on November 17th, Jessica Parker will be the speaker for a leadership series. Her topic will be Achieve Your Goals. And next week, our speaker will be Tim Conley from the Shelter Box. And I also want to point out there are memory boards on Bill Klein's over on the side of the room there. David brought those in, so feel free to take a look at that before you leave. I want to thank everybody for being here live and on Zoom. And I have a quote I want to leave you with. For being in a place that's landlocked, Minnesotans have a real sense of the wider world. Teachers, friends, neighbors. Everywhere I went in Minnesota, people put their heads up, looked out to the horizon. Jake Sullivan. Meeting adjourned.